Hey there, this is Natalie, and this is a video in praise of ReZero Arc 5. I feel like with all the love Arcs 4 and 6 tend to get, Arc 5 can feel a little bit underrated. That's not to say people don't like Arc 5, or that I actually think it's better than 4 or 6. I pretty much share the usual opinion you find among web novel and light novel readers that 4 and 6 are so far the real series-defining masterpiece arcs. But Arc 5 has a lot of interesting stuff going for it that we don't tend to talk about quite so much. And so I just wanted to make a video highlighting some of the reasons why Arc 5 deserves our love. Arc 5 will of course be season 3 of the anime, and I think due to the amount of action it has in it and how impressive it has the potential to look when animated, that will be a banger of a season. So I really hope it gets announced soon. As I've said before, I don't see there being another 4-year wait for the next season of the ReZero anime. I think that, like Attack on Titan, it will speed up in terms of anime releases after season 2. And with Arcs 5 and 6 already finished by the author, the source material is there. So I don't think we will have a huge wait for a season 3 announcement. But enough of me getting excited for announcements we haven't had yet. Here are 5 reasons why ReZero Arc 5 is underrated. Naturally, there will be spoilers for Arc 5 and therefore ReZero Season 3 here, but I won't be talking about Arc 6 at all, so you're good if you haven't read it yet. Where Arc 4 introduces a lot of new characters and gives a lot of development to the Emilia faction, with Arc 5 we get the return of all of the Royal Selection factions, so all of the candidates and their inner circles. This means a lot of new stuff with characters we hadn't seen since Arc 3, and with the way Arc 5 is structured, which is very different to what we've seen before, we get to see things in Arc 5 from the perspectives of all different characters, as well as seeing a lot of interactions between them and experiences they have when Subaru isn't there. Basically, the main part of Arc 5 is all of the factions having to team up to fight off all of the remaining witch cult Sin Archbishops, who are holding the Watergate city of Pristella, a place where Anastasia has arranged for a kind of meet-up between the factions of the election, hostage. They are threatening to flood and destroy the city, as well as doing various other things to the citizens of the city. And where the Sin Archbishops aren't really team players, they're all in different locations around Pristella. This means that Subaru and the temporary alliance of the other factions strategically split off into different groups to go and fight different archbishops. Where the groups are all split but all allied with Subaru for the time being, we get a chance to see what's happening for each set of people and spend more time than ever before in ReZero seeing character interactions that Subaru doesn't see firsthand, without this leading to the audience knowing too many things Subaru doesn't know, because of course all of the important stuff will be reported to him. It's good to get so much development for so many characters without changing the overall sense that we as an audience are only able to know things that Subaru gets to know, relatively close to when he gets to know them, so not distancing us from him too much in terms of trying to figure out the mysteries of this world and its people. Of course, while most characters we've missed from Arc 3 and Season 1 of ReZero do return, that doesn't mean that this arc has absolutely everybody in it. And some characters that were focused on in Arc 4, like the witches and Roswell, are absent. Plus, Rem is still sidelined. But among the election candidates, knights, and the Sin Archbishops, there are plenty of great characters to give even the biggest fans of Rem or Echidna some favourites to root for. One thing that Tappei has proven himself to be really good at with ReZero is not letting the return by death gimmick get stale. Each arc sees it explored in different ways and finds ways to keep the stakes high, even when we know Subaru can redo things. For example, the bet with Roswell in Arc 4. In Arc 5, the return by death mechanic is underplayed, with just a few short loops that help him understand the danger coming to the city at the start, and then the rest of the arc playing out with everybody managing to solve the problems they encounter and survive without Subaru actually resetting things. This not only allows for us to spend all that time with other characters' points of view, Something that might be less impactful if it ended up that none of this development actually stuck due to a return by death. But it also creates some real tension for Subaru at the end of the arc, when he must figure out how everybody else is done and if anyone he isn't willing to lose was lost. Basically waiting to find out if he has to kill himself and try this whole large-scale thing once again. In Arc 5, Subaru is still of the mindset he was after the Trial of the Present in Arc 4, of not wanting to see dying as his only way to help people, and so we see him thinking of return by death as a last resort, fighting as hard as he can despite getting serious permanent injuries and not using return by death to reverse setbacks. It also gives a sense of the current extent of the responsibility Subaru thinks he has to save people. He's willing to return by death at the end if anybody important to him is lost, but he does accept the deaths of some unknown civilians who killed each other in a rage brought on by the effects of Sirius, the Archbishop of Wrath, and her authority. And he does accept a large number of people ending up in the same condition as Rem. This, on the one hand, shows him being realistic enough about what he can do to not yet at least, have the greed to think he needs to keep trying for a perfect ending, but it also kind of makes you think about the unfairness of it all. Subaru can't be expected to save everyone, but at the same time being willing to sacrifice all of the progress in the battles and everything that went well, but only if it's someone he personally cares for who dies or winds up in a coma, kinda makes you think about the things Echidna's said in the past about the value of a life. What makes someone Subaru would die to save, but who isn't particularly an essential asset for the causes of good? Someone like, say, Petra, more valuable than those people in the shelter who died. Would Subaru return by death for people he didn't meet in Arc 5, but who someone close to him would care about, like Garfiel's newfound brother and sister? Where does his burden begin and end? Subaru does what a good person would do and tries to save the people that matter to him, but because he's not a god and can't save everyone, even Reinhard, who's present for this whole arc, can't do that. He does end up valuing some and having to accept others as collateral damage. It's interesting to compare this with Roswell, who also accepts collateral damage but simply values only one thing instead of a whole group of people, as well as to think about this in terms of Echidna's view of the world and the value of lives. On a less intense note, Arc 5 also brings us the beginning of a very cute and wholesome ship, with adorable yet terrifying kitten girl Mimi from Anastasia's faction taking a big interest in our boy Garfiel. Garfiel's story in Arc 5 is among the best of all of the many characters in the arc, in my opinion, though I did go into it quite a lot in my recent Garfiel character video, so I won't go on about it too much here. It's just really nice to see a romance beginning to brew in ReZero between some of the secondary characters. There are actually remarkably few ships in ReZero so far that don't involve Subaru or exist only in our heads, and that's fine, but this pairing does add a bit of levity to what would otherwise be a pretty angsty arc for Garfiel, as well as bringing Mimi into things a bit more, promoting her from occasional cute comic relief character to someone more fleshed out, though still just as cute and comical. I don't know anyone who hates this ship, but if you're that one person who does, please explain yourself in the comments. The brief introduction of Regulus Corneas and Batenkaitos at the start of Season 2 definitely left people wanting to see more of the Sin Archbishops, and while we will get to see more of Regulus in the second core of Season 2, where it's in scenes from 100 years ago, Arc 4 really doesn't reveal much about the current threat from the cultists. In Arc 5, we get to see plenty of Regulus, as well as new Sin Archbishops in the form of Sirius Romani Conti, the Archbishop of Wrath, Roy Alphard, a second Sin Archbishop of Gluttony, representing bizarre eating, and to my mind, the most insane and terrifying one of all, Capella Emerada Lagunica, the highly sadistic Sin Archbishop of Lust. Learning what the personalities and abilities of what seemed to be the only remaining Sin Archbishops were made Arc 5 extremely interesting from a Revelations point of view and created opportunities for some sick battles. It also made a lot of sense for them to be introduced now, when we and Subaru have already met all of the Witches of Sin, giving a bit more context and contrast to the Archbishops, as well as meaning we know a bit more about witch factors. What we discovered in Arc 4 gives the background to make these dangerous antagonists with their over-the-top personalities seem like more than just a bunch of supervillains taking over a city so that action can happen. Plus, the events of Arc 5 left a lot of questions about the Sin Archbishops and their overall goals unanswered, raising even more mysteries around them to feed into future arcs. Well, except for Regulus, who met about the most metal end imaginable. And that brings me on to point number 5. Arc 5 has without a doubt some of the most exciting and interesting fights in ReZero so far. There's a lot of spectacle. You've got Subaru and Reinhard crashing a wedding before teaming up with an Emilia in a wedding dress to fight Regulus Corneas. You've got Garfiel having a fight to the death with a reanimated legendary warrior with 6 arms. You've got Al using some, frankly, sus powers to fight Capella. You've got Willhelm facing the reanimated corpse soldier version of his beloved wife Theresia. You've got a tense fight where Felt reveals a mysterious weapon, finds out her name isn't her name, Otto gets water dragons to do his bidding, and Beaco shows up and gets Sirius. There's also a bit where Priscilla kisses Worst Girl. It's just wall-to-wall stuff that's going to look amazing in the anime, and fans of Sakuga are probably going to be getting a lot to be excited about in Season 3. So, with all of that stuff taken into account, why isn't Arc 5 generally gone on about as much as Arcs 4 and 6? Well, I think it's because whereas fans we're now so invested in finding out the secrets of this world, Arc 5 has less by way of major revelations for Subaru about the things we're most curious about. It's a great arc for character development for so many characters, and it's an eventful arc where a lot of important things happen, but when it comes to shocking new information that changes everything, it doesn't have as much as 4 and 6 do. That's not to say there aren't intriguing revelations. Every arc so far has had some of those. But where Arc 5 is more about moving the plot forward and creating a big event that involves most of the important characters to deepen their histories together and connect them a bit more for future developments, the focus isn't so much on Subaru finding out massive new bits of information. Additionally, a lot of the best things in Arc 5 are of the sort that really might just come over best in anime form. Reading fights and battles involving powers we've never seen before can make them seem harder to really follow properly than seeing them. Fights, from a writing standpoint, tend to need to be written in a way that focuses on the changes in the situation as the characters experience them, so the focus is a lot more internal than when these kinds of action scenes are viewed from outside of the characters' heads. And so this could be an arc whose best moments really shine when it's in anime form. So that's about all from me for now. Don't forget to leave a like and please subscribe. I'm really hoping to get to 2,000 subscribers by Christmas, and I have a lot of content coming up, including my new Attack on Titan content, along with more ReZero theories and analysis, and of course, coverage of the second court of ReZero Season 2 and Arc 7 of the web novel once we start getting them. Thanks for watching, and I hope to see you again very soon.